finally here. Welcome to Text Time. Today I'm going to be walking you through my full review on the S23 Ultra. So the one I managed to get my hands on was that green, and I do like the green a lot. The video doesn't do it justice because it looks much better in person, and especially when the light is hitting it, it does have different shades, which I like a lot. So if you ever had the S22 Ultra, at first glance, they pretty much look exactly the same. You might not be able to tell them apart. However, there are very subtle differences between the two. So the first one and the most noticeable is the sides. As you can see, the S22 Ultra is pretty rounded around the sides, while this one is a bit flatter. It's not as round as this one is. Not a huge difference, but I do feel like it feels better in the hand than this. The second difference you might notice is the cameras. So the camera bumps on the newer phone are bigger than the old one, which also make it to where when they're both on the table, it does flop more. So at first glance, you might feel like this is not as good because it flops more on the table. However, looking at the back, I noticed something that I do like more, is that if you look at the cameras, back on last year's model, the S22, you'll notice that the cameras are pretty much flat with the actual rings around the cameras. So whenever you put it down on the table, the cameras themselves, the glass is touching the table, which is pretty bad because it will scratch your cameras, and if the phone moves around, then you're basically smearing the lens of the camera on the table. Unlike with the new one, where it's kind of hard to notice, but if you look at it, the rings around the cameras actually protrude a little bit higher than the actual lenses themselves. So when you put it on the table, it's touching the metal and not the lens itself. So hopefully with this little change, you'll avoid scratches like these. And I'm secretly hoping that the flatter sides will help avoid an issue like this, where basically if your phone falls and it hits the side, then it just chatters like this, but only time will tell if this design makes any difference. And as far as the specs go for this phone has a 5000 milliamp battery, as well as the new Snapdragon 8 Gen 2, and the phone's display goes all the way up to 1750 nits, which is very bright, so when you're outside you'll have no issues watching a video or reading a text. So far it's not very different from the old phone, so pretty much it's just the flat sides, the bigger camera bump, and the newer processor. However, the thing that they really focused on this year's model is the cameras. So pretty much like 80% of the new things that they did was all on the cameras. So starting off with the first thing that they did is that the camera is 200 megapixels, and it also allows for 2.5 times more light to the sensor, so it allows your photos to look much better because there is more light going to the sensor, and at the same time, since it's able to see more light, it also makes for great night shots. They have also improved the autofocus for the device, so that way it's able to switch between targets very quickly to help you capture that moment and not miss something that you were trying to take a photo of. The cameras also now have a 3x telephoto as well as a 10x telephoto, which make taking photos of things that are far away really good, since a physical telephoto camera is much better than just having a digital zoom. But on the other side, since the camera goes from 1x to 3x, that means when you're at 2x, that's digital zoom. And at the same time, that means from 3 all the way up to 10, anything in between, that will also be digital zoom. So if you are trying to get the best shot, you would want to stay around 1, 3, or 10. And of course, it has the 0.6 wide angle. And one of the biggest thing that they added this year is 8K video. Alright, so now I'm recording on the S23 Ultra, and this is 4K. It's also pretty windy out here, and I'm next to a road as well, so this is also a good test for the microphone. With 4K, you get options for either the wide angle at 0.6, or the normal, which is the 1x, 3x, and without moving from my spot, this is the 4K video at 10x, because now it's using the telephoto camera. And this is what the 8K video looks like. Same conditions, still windy out here. On the viewfinder itself, it doesn't look as good as 4K, but maybe that's just on the phone because the phone can't display that resolution. So I'm hoping it will look better later. Now on 8K video, you're only able to shoot that on the main camera. So you're not able to use the telephoto at 3x or 10x. And the main camera can only zoom up to 6x, but that's digital zoom, so it doesn't look great. But in my opinion, 4K ended up looking better just because it's able to grab more light. For 8K to be good, you have to have a lot of light around you in the environment, which is kind of hard to find a situation that has that much light. So I don't think 8K will take off anytime soon, especially that most people don't even have an 8K display or TV. And lastly, they've added astrophotography, so if you want to take pictures of the stars and have it basically take a long exposure photo, so it would capture the stars moving in the sky. And the telephoto is really good that I feel like you could actually use it as a macro. It zooms in so far to where it feels like you have a close-up macro lens. They also added a new feature which I think is really cool in my opinion. That feature is called pause power delivery, which basically what it does is that, let's say you're playing a game on your phone, for example, it will pause the battery charging and it will have the power coming from the outlet directly to the phone. So that way you're not putting strain on your battery and having it charge and discharge at the same time. So a feature like that should prolong your battery life by a lot if you're somebody who games on their phone a lot. As of right now, it looks like the feature can only be enabled when you're playing a game. I'm really hoping that they spread this feature to other uses as well, not just gaming. Let's say you're in the car, for example, and you want to have the GPS on. I want to have it plugged in and I want the phone to use the power directly from the car and not from the actual battery, because we've all seen how hot our phones get when they're mounted in the car, especially with the sun and the navigation being on. So having this feature be something that you can use at any time, like let's say you're watching Netflix or navigation in the car or playing a game, or maybe you have your phone connected to the TV and you're playing a movie or something, I don't want the phone to be overheating. So if they implement this feature correctly, I think this would be one of the biggest features we've seen in a phone in a couple of years. And with that, you might be asking, should you buy this phone? I would honestly say that this phone is a pretty complete package overall. It takes really good videos, really good photos. It has a very fast processor. It's very well built. It will have a couple of years of software updates, and it's packed to the brim with features. However, I would say if you're thinking about upgrading from something like the S22 Ultra, unless you really want the newer cameras, I don't think it would be worth it. And if what you're looking for is the new feature, the power delivery, that will also be added to the S22 with a software update, so it's still not worth it. However, if you're somebody who hasn't upgraded for a while and you're looking for a new phone to upgrade to, I think that the S23 Ultra is a perfect option. With one of the best displays on the market, fastest processor, and best cameras, I don't think you can go wrong with this. And with that, I hope you learned something new, and if you have any questions, leave them down below. Like the video if you liked it, dislike it if you didn't, and with that, peace out.